everybody, Tom Vasel here, and welcome back as we are counting down through my favorite heroes in X-Men United. Today we're taking a look at 51 through 60, which sounds pretty terrible, but realize a lot of these heroes are good, okay? Again, I think all the heroes in Marvel United are pretty good. There's a few I don't like. But the ones here in these 10, they're lower than the next 50. But that's just my personal preference on one hand, and on the other hand, I have to rank some of them lower than the rest. So you're going to see some team people show up in this one. So let's get started, though, with the craziest hero of all. All right, we're going to start here by taking a look at number 60. So if you watched the last episode, we talked about Apocalypse, and I actually have Apocalypse and Legion next to each other for the same reason. Now, I do want to give the Legion cards some props. So every Legion card is a special ability, and you'll notice these are all the personalities in his head. The personality they're talking about, so there's Cindy, there's Susan and Sunshine, they're highlighted. I thought that was a nice, really cool touch for that. But the problem is all his cards are powerful, his special abilities, but they are powerfully bad also. Like each other hero, villain, and henchman takes double damage to your next turn. You hit an adjacent location. Each hero there takes 1 damage. You know, that's how his stuff is. Delay the next villain turn by a card. Great, but heroes must play their card randomly until the next villain turn. So his stuff's powerful, and yes, since you are picking the card to play, you're going to try to manipulate it so it doesn't affect you, but that's still kind of dangerous. So I've always thought Legion was kind of a funny thing, but he has heroes can freely exchange your action tokens between them. That's great. That one's positive, but for the most part, it's like, here's a little positive, here's a little negative. And he's pretty powerful in that regard. Now, I will say that his icons themselves, and that makes sense because Legion was never someone who was an overly powerful character. His stats aren't particularly great on the bottom of his cards. It's all about these interesting special abilities. But yeah, he's an interesting character to play. I don't want to do it all the time. And when you do play this, this is not a character you'd give to someone who's playing this for the first time. That would be insane, which Legion is. All right, 59, we got Shatterstar here. So Shatterstar has a lot of, I like that he has these 4 cards that are a movement and something else. And he has a decent amount of heroic stuff, not a ton of attack, but he has these really powerful attacks, but you have to discard a card to hit 3, split as you like in your and adjacent locations. That with a move is pretty good, but giving up that card can be pretty annoying. However, he does have the healing factor to draw 3 cards in his hand. So he's kind of, I'll play Shatterstar, even though I despise this character in the comics, but he requires a bit of a light touch, and he's fine. That's why he's here in this position. Hey, we're back to Alpha Flight. So now we have Snowbird. Now, she's better than the last 2 Alpha Flight people we looked at. She has a decent icons on her cards, and she has 5 special cards. 2 of them, these are the kind of special cards I like a lot, because essentially these animal shapeshifting, it's a move plus 2 other things. Now that only works for Snowbird, but still, that's very simple. Her starting card is this mystical resistance. As long as this is face up, you can't be forced to play cards randomly. Fine, but that doesn't happen that often. Now, if you're playing against someone who might make you do that, you're playing against Mr. Sinister, maybe she's there, but that's a very, very singular thing. And then she is an Alpha Flight card, so the Alpha Flight characters all have this Alpha Flight card that gives them tokens for each face-up card, so they're going to get at least 1 and could get more, but man, these just don't work out well, especially since you don't start with them. And then this one here, as long as this card's face up, you get a wild token whenever one of your cards is turned face down. That's cool, but again, it needs to be fighting a villain who's actually going to be flipping cards face down. Yeah, she's not the best Alpha Flight character, but she's not the worst. For some reason, I've played a lot with Guardian. I've been playing a lot with the Alpha Flight characters, and I like him better than many of the others, mostly because his Alpha Flight card gives wild tokens. I think that's pretty solid. Here, he can give a wild token to another hero. That's pretty good. Here, he has an attack plus attack against 2 different targets in your location, which can work pretty well, especially when you're taking out thugs, and don't take any damage to the beginning of your next turn. That mixed with some decent, jack of all trade stats. You can barely on the model see the Canadian flag on him. So this is another one that probably has to be painted. But yeah, because of his wilds, I put him a little bit above the other members in an Alpha Flight. Phantomax is kind of a weird character in the comics. He was billed as an ultimate fighter, which I'm not seeing kind of come out here. His stats aren't particularly great. What you'll notice here is wilds. However, they're wilds at the cost of double tokens. You'll notice that none of his cards have 2 icons on them. His starting card is when the top card of the master plan is revealed, you can immediately move to an adjacent location. Not bad, it helps him avoid getting blown apart. And he can look at the top card of the master plan, put it on top, which is fine depending on when it's played. And then this one here, as long as it's face up at the end of every villain turn, you get 1 free heroic and 1 attack in the villain's location. That's interesting. It can work really well, but also it's blank at the bottom. So I think he's cool. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind having wilds and some decent specials. The problem is that those single icons keep him from rising higher on the list for me. And also kind of thematically, I was expecting him to be this amazing fighter, and he's not particularly. So, but he does get to stand on some cool wreckage here with his miniature. So there's that. Oh, I'm almost afeared to talk about Cable here because I know he's one of people's favorite characters both in the comic, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was very similar here in the game. And I think Cable's fine. Again, one of my worries with him is he only has 1 card that has double icons on it. But he has 6 special cards. Discard a card, a little dangerous, but to get a double wild action, probably worth it. Letting everyone else draw a card and discard one kind of lets you kind of manipulate the game a bit. And then this techno-organic psychology where you have attack and draw till you have 3 cards in your hand. Plus, you'll notice he comes with 4 more wilds. So it's really hard to say that Cable is bad in any sort of way. It's just that single icons on the card makes me a little less, but man, I'll still throw him in a team. Cable's fine. Cable's cool. Also, he's really cool in the comics. All right, we're up to Polaris now. Very green, the cards. But yeah, she has green hair in the comics. She's a very straightforward one. You know, I talk sometimes about characters that people should use who've never played the game before. She's definitely one of them. Has a nice spread of attack, heroic, movement, some doubles. This magnetic manipulation's a really nice card that lets you do 2 damage in your adjacent location, giving you a lot of maneuverability, especially with a move on the card, and then 2 cards that keep her from taking any damage. She's just very straightforward and solid, and so if you're looking for, kind of an all-around person to add to a team, Polaris is very good in that regard. Here's where I feel some people might disagree, because here's my highest ranked member of Alpha Flight, and it's Sasquatch. Now, part of that is because, come on, it's a Sasquatch. Roar. Who's not going to like that? But also, sometimes I just want to take a tank, someone who can fight, and Sasquatch has that. A bunch of attack symbols. His Alpha Flight gives you an attack token for each face-up card, but 2 damage against a single target and 1 damage against 2 different targets. And this damage is combined with heroic, so he kind of does it all. Again, just like Polaris, Sasquatch is one of those characters that I might give to somebody who's new to the game because they're pretty easy to understand and play. I don't know that I'd put 2 of those characters in the same team, 2 all-around people. And again, if you're going to play Alpha Flight, you're probably best playing with multiple Alpha Flight people. But I found that the 3 that I've mentioned in this top 10 make a pretty solid team. Okay. Sorry, Alpha Flight. Fantastic Four, they're a real team. So they come with this Fantastic Four card, and when you play a teamwork card, and there's 2 teamwork cards in the deck, you're going to get to put a token on that card. Well, first you do all the actions on the card, which means the first one of these played does nothing. But after that, you get to use all the tokens on that card. And since there's 2 of these in a deck, you play with the Fantastic Four as a group, they're going to do well. So the Invisible Woman adds heroic and movement to that card. She also gets 2 wild tokens with an extra wild here, and as long as her starting card here, as long as this card's face up, she can choose not to take any damage until the beginning of her next turn, but then she has to play her card face down. And that's not as interesting to me as I wanted it to be. I like to take no damage, but playing your card face down is awful. And that's why she's the lowest of the Fantastic Four. But other than that, I mean, I have no complaints. I'll still play her. I mean, 4 double icon cards, the extra wild, 2 wild tokens, and then, of course, just being part of the Fantastic Four. So very, very good. And I would rather pick her over any of the members in Alpha Flight. Okay, the last one for today is Pixie. Now, Pixie has some pretty terrible attack. But, oh, look, though, she's a pixie. There's a reason she's not used in the comics that often. But she has a lot of symbols, and she's very heroic. And then she has some pretty cool special abilities. Here, teleporting, you have to move to another location. When I first saw that card, I was like, really? That doesn't sound good, you have to? Don't worry, it's fine. You want to jump around anyway. She can stun somebody, which I like these better when they're combined with a move. But since she's moving and she can have the teleporting spell and be all over the board, I don't mind those. And her other stun one is with a move. So she is much more useful. She's very annoying to the villain as a hero. And so if you're going to play with her, you're definitely going to bring someone like Sasquatch or Hulk or someone who has a bunch of attack, because she's not going to be bringing any of that. But other than that, I like her maneuverability a lot. We're done with Alpha Flight. We've just begun the Fantastic Four, and then got a kind of a smattering, got a little bit of X-Force, and then Legion, who's everybody. So some interesting characters here. Several of them. In fact, I've been playing with these two a lot over the last couple of days, trying to make Alpha Flight be a really powerful team, and hint, they're not, but they're still fun to play with. So anyhow, we're going to just get better and better. We got 10 more coming in the next episode. I'll see you then. Until then, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.